There are 8 million additional Americans who should be ready to punish Trump and the Republican Party. They should be furious with Trump right now. And if even a fraction of them remember what happened when they vote in November, Republicans should be absolutely destroyed. Now, let me tell you what is going on. We all remember the campaign promises: lower costs of everything, life will become more affordable, Americans will be better off, and all of that stuff. We now have a new study which finds that about 8 million Americans have lost their health insurance since Donald Trump took office a second time. It's an astonishing 8 million people. Enrollment data finds that 4 million fewer people are enrolled in Affordable Care Act plans compared to this time last year. And then an additional 3.8 million have lost Medicaid or CHIP coverage. So you put those numbers together, and you're talking about 8 million people who had coverage before and now they don't. Was this an unavoidable natural disaster? Of course not. This happened because those enhanced Obamacare subsidies expired, to the glee of Republicans. This made coverage more expensive for millions of people, and other policy changes just set up more barriers to people keeping their coverage. Now, it's really important when we think this through to remember that for years, Republicans said, we've got something better than the Affordable Care Act. Trump went back. I mean, listen, it's satirical almost at this point, but it did happen. In July of 2020, Trump told Chris Wallace, we have a new health care plan. It will be signed into law in 2 weeks. It's been 6 years since that. We still don't even know what the plan looks like. But in theory, it was going to be cheaper. It was going to be better. It was going to give Americans better health care. And we've been hearing versions of that promise now for 6 years. And instead, if you look at the hard numbers, millions of people have simply lost their insurance. They don't have a replacement. They certainly don't have an improvement. They just no longer have insurance. And when you think about that number, 8 million, that's bigger than the population of many countries. And that's the number of additional people now going, can I afford to see a doctor? I have a symptom. What do I do? I need a prescription refilled. Can I afford that? I need a cancer treatment, but this is what my coinsurance is, or forget about coinsurance. Some may have catastrophic coverage with a high coinsurance. What is the out-of-pocket cost on that? If I'm a cash patient, I don't know that I can afford that. Or do I just hope nothing serious happens to me and maybe next year I can get coverage? Like, these are not abstract questions when you are in a situation of need. Your family is in a situation of need. It's people's lives. And so I think that this should have major political implications. Trump announced we're having a giant midterm convention in September. I said yesterday, I think this is a very bad idea. He's obviously wanting to make the election about himself, but his approval is 30%. His approval on the economy is 27%. He thinks that this convention will energize Republicans and dominate the news. But the risk of doing that is that every single time Trump becomes the center of attention, voters should ask a really simple question. Am I actually better off than I was before? If you're one of the 8 million people who lost health insurance, or one of the many millions more who kept it, but your premiums went way up, or your prescription drug prices went way up, and your family's budget is now tighter, you don't even need Democrats or MSNBC or me going, this sucks. You've lived it. You have that experience. And healthcare is one of the most powerful election issues because people feel it directly. Speeches can be ignored, campaign ads can be ignored, whatever. But it's harder to ignore getting a letter from your insurance company saying, hey, your premium's going up 30%, or canceling your plan because you simply can't afford it at all. So Republicans love talking about culture war issues, men and women's sports, and all of this stuff. They're emotional. They do well on social media. But that is not really what elections are decided by. Elections are decided by kitchen table issues. And there is no more emotionally salient and financially salient such issue than healthcare, medical bills, prescription drugs, whether you can afford to take your kid to the doctor or take yourself to the doctor. There are 8 million people who could decide this election. You don't even need all 8 million to vote against Republicans. If some stay home and some vote against Republicans and whatever, that could be enough to absolutely destroy Republican control of the House and Senate in November. So I think this story matters a lot. It's about health insurance, but it's also about broken promises that go directly to every single family. And I just suggest that people hold Trump to the promises he made. He said, indubitably, within a day of me getting into power, life is going to get more affordable for everybody. And it's been the opposite. It's been the opposite everywhere. So go ahead, spend September holding this midterm convention and say Republicans deserve to be rewarded. But the risk is that Americans will go, wait a second, this guy's been in power and none of the stuff he promised came true. The answer is obvious. I'm not voting for a single one of these Republicans. That's the idea. That's the goal. That's the risk to Trump. We'll see if it actually shakes out that way. Appreciate you watching. Stick around for this next video and don't forget to hit subscribe so you actually see our uploads. You can also catch the full podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.